Probably should have given myself some notes for this, so I'll just freewheel it. God help you all. So basically, because I had a bunch of random stuff I wanted to talk about, and I don't know, didn't think I could make an interesting video out of it, I decided the main thing for this December is going to be me just like streaming whatever games I feel like talking about, but again, couldn't figure out what to do for a video. So expect me to be stammering through a lot of points as I try to articulate my thoughts on these games and why people should play them. Anyway, yeah. So, this is my shoddily named series, Reviewing It Live. Yeah, as is pretty obvious. Starting with Earth Defense Force 6. Yes. EDF is it's a very arcadey sort of co-op shooter, and it's something I think works well in its favor, I think. It's very different from, I don't know, a lot of the sort of Borderlands family of looter shooters. I will say though that I feel like, I don't know, a lot of the criticism around the criticism I do sometimes see every EDF feels, I don't know, misplaced in a way. Like a lot of it often comes around to like the asset reuse and such. But part of the problem I think is like, what games are you comparing it to when you bring that up? Because like any type of game that is designed like this, right? It is fundamentally a co-op game about playing often the same stuff over and over again and collecting loot. There's some amount of repetition inherent in that, above and beyond the fact that any game with any kind of core loop is inherently repetitive. And yeah, EDF does reuse about, I don't know, well, we're probably almost up to around 10 maps by this game. Okay, it's a little more than that, but it does reuse the same fistful of maps quite a bit. But I don't know. I guess my question is, how much does that particular part matter? Again, in a genre that is inherently very repetitive, I feel like most games that this is competing with tend to also be similarly repetitive, and I think EDF focuses the variation on the parts that matter. In other words, the game differentiates stuff a lot through the enemies. And through different objectives and conditional things. Like, I never find the missions feel repetitive in this game, because I'm always doing something different, even if I'm doing it in the same place. I feel like, by comparison, a lot of similar co-op focused games tend to be the other way around. You're doing things in different environments, but you're typically doing the same things in those environments. Well, this actually gives us a good chance to talk about something else I really like about EDF, which is one of those things where, similar to the levels, it trades theoretical variety for variety that you actually feel. So one of the big perks of EDF is that there is no randomly generated loot. All the weapons were designed bespoke by the developers. There's a bit of randomness in the stat rankings, but whenever you get duplicates, you just combine the rankings with your existing weapon, and so it's more of a weapon upgrade system than truly randomized stats. But because everything is bespoke and actually had a human touch put into it, the variety is... well, maybe it's not about variety. The distinctiveness is much greater than you would get with, say, a game with randomly generated loot, where you have a vast pool of possible outcomes, but a lot of them are not that unique. Let's switch back to hard and use this opportunity to, I don't know, sort of provide a conclusion for this whole thing. This is, after all, allegedly supposed to be like a live review or something like that. So let's see. Because I think trying to give just an all-purpose score or something like that, even beyond just the general futility of numbered scores, is, I don't know, kind of narrow-minded. Let's try and talk about, like, what kind of things are the reasons you should play EDF 6. Well, for one, if you're already an EDF fan, yeah, you'll probably enjoy this one. With some slight caveats, you need to be ready for mostly just another EDF game. It doesn't change things radically. So if you basically, I don't know, if you would like a slightly improved version of EDF 5, and see how that sounds to you. If that does not sound good to you, if you want some more change, then I don't know, maybe wait for a sale. The game is good, but it does not differentiate itself as much as some of its predecessors did. As for, you know, if you haven't played EDF before, well, for one, it's a great choice if you and some friends need some kind of co-op shooter to play together. Obviously, there are plenty of them on the market, but yeah, EDF is very solid, and I think stands out with its more classical gaming sensibilities, and just generally its focus on bespoke design rather than relying on procedurally generated stuff. If you're the type of person to use like PS2 game comparisons as a derogatory thing, just don't bother with this game. This is not for people like you. But if you find yourself wishing games were more like those days, then there's a lot to like here as a co-op shooter. And I guess the last thing I want to go back to is my earlier point about variety. Yes, this game does reuse many elements from mission to mission, and it doesn't have, say, the raw number of possible loot items as something that is fully procedural in its loot, but the variety that is there is more significant. It is repetitive in many ways, but the ways in which it does... God, I can't think of a good way to sum this up. This is why I do everything from a script, is that I can spend half an hour working on a sentence to try and get it right. EDF 6, like many games in its general sphere of genre that are co-op and focused on replayable content, does have some elements that are repetitive. Any game like this is going to have them. EDF 6 excels at making the differences it does have, that it does use to keep things fresh, be the most impactful possible. Where many games would try and have as many small variations as possible, EDF is content to let things like the maps be very often repeated, but focuses all of its efforts into things like making the enemy placements and scenarios keep things fresh. And in that way, I find it often feels less repetitive to play than many other games like it. Sure, it may look more repetitive, but it's a video game. The true test of anything in a video game is in playing it. And I guess similarly with the weapons, yeah, you don't have an infinite number of possible weapons like in some games, but the small selection you have, relatively speaking, are able to define themselves with stark differences. So, yeah, I guess if there's something to think about in all this, it's, yeah, how variety can often be less a matter of sheer number of possibilities and more about the space between the possibilities that do exist. Wow, that almost actually sounded like good and almost even poetic. Yeah, I'm keeping that as the concluding point for this. The other concluding point is that EDF 6 is pretty damn fun, and I can recommend it if this is your type of game. And I guess that's it for this inaugural episode of Reviewing It Live. Only a minor train wreck. Hopefully my meandering wasn't too miserable to listen to, but I'm going to keep doing this stuff. See if I can't, I don't know, get better at this, make some success with it. Honestly, who knows even what my YouTube channel is about at this point, but for now, this is Mikhail, signing off.